Hello everyone and welcome to this new episode of Ignition Time. I hope our community is doing well. My name is Dr. Chhoda. This right here is a little bit of information about me. Welcome to our channel everyone, where I give you the truth about the country, the economy, as well as our money. Folks, this is big news. The United States Labor Secretary, the new Labor Secretary, Marty Walsh, wants gig workers to be classified as regular workers so that they can be eligible for state unemployment benefits. Folks, this is a massive shift in policy from the Biden administration. This is big news. Remember, if this happens, this would mean that gig workers would have the same benefits as state workers, and this would have been unheard of a year ago. Remember, the reason gig workers get the PUA benefits, the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, the reason they get those benefits is because that was instituted, the PUA program was instituted as a result of the CARES Act. Prior to the CARES Act in March of last year, there was absolutely no unemployment benefits. There were no unemployment benefits for gig workers. This is incredible. This is big news. Welcome to this episode of Ignition Time. If you learned something new, please click the like button, please subscribe, please enable notifications, and remember, you heard this here first on Ignition Time. Let's just jump right into the news. This is an exclusive report from Reuters. We'll provide you with a link to the article in the description section below. The US Labor Secretary throws his support behind classifying gig workers as employees. This would mean that gig workers would not be dependent on the PUA program, which is set to expire later this year, but would be eligible for regular state unemployment benefits. Folks, this is big. Again, the United States Labor Secretary Marty Walsh is pushing for this. Here's a quote from the Reuters article. A lot of gig workers in the United States should be classified as employees who deserve benefits, and this was a statement from President Biden's Labor Secretary Marty Walsh, and this is a major shift in policy that is likely to raise costs for companies that employ a lot of gig workers like Uber and like Lyft. And this is very important. Let's take a look at an exact quote from Marty Walsh. We are looking at it, but in a lot of cases, gig workers should be classified as employees. In some cases, they are treated respectfully, and in some cases, they are not. And I think it has to be consistent across the board. Again, this is from the US Labor Secretary Marty Walsh. The Labor Department is a department that oversees unemployment benefits and many other things in our country. So the Labor Department makes decisions based on the administration's priorities. So if the Labor Department decides that gig workers need to be treated as employees, the states would have to comply, and this would create a chain reaction where companies like Uber and Lyft wouldn't be very happy. Let's just put it that way. Here's another comment from Marty Walsh. These companies are making profits and revenue, and I'm not going to begrudge anyone for that, because that's what we are about in America. He's talking about companies like Uber and Lyft that employ a lot of gig workers, a lot of temporary workers, a lot of part-time workers. He said, but we also want to make sure that success trickles down to the worker. And folks, as a direct result of this news, shares of Uber fell as much as 8%, Lyft dived as much as 12%, DoorDash fell nearly 9%, and Grubhub was down 3.3%. And I want our viewers and subscribers to know that in the United States, there are strict workplace laws and regulations that govern how employers should interact with and deal with employees. I'm talking about vigorous enforcement of occupational safety and health rules. I'm talking about overtime payments. I'm talking about proper administration of employee benefit plans. So if all of these companies now have to do all of that stuff for their gig workers, it's going to significantly impact shareholder value for those companies. And I think it's safe to assume that these companies are going to fight back. Now remember, as many as 55 million individuals in our country, yes, you heard that right, 55 million individuals in the United States of America are classified as gig workers. This is 34% of the entire workforce. This is based on more recent data that we have, and the total is projected to rise to 43% this year and in the coming years. In other words, more and more individuals are going to be gig workers, and if this does indeed happen, all companies will have to undertake a greater responsibility to be able to comply with workplace safety and occupational rules that are mandated by the federal government for employees. Here's another quote from this article. Marty Walsh, the Secretary of the Labor Department, said the department will have conversations with companies that employ gig workers in the coming months to make sure workers have access to consistent wages, sick time, healthcare, and all of the things that an average employee in America can access. This is a quote directly from the US Labor Secretary Marty Walsh. All of the things that an average employee in America can access. Now, as you can imagine, Uber and DoorDash were not very happy. Here's another comment from this Reuters article. Again, I'll provide you with a link to the article in the description section below. An Uber spokesperson said that the United States should be advancing policies to improve independent work and not eliminating it. They said that an overwhelming majority of workers who use their app want to stay independent because it allows them to work when they want, where they want, and how they want, with the flexibility that a traditional job, in other words, a traditional employee, does not get. So this was a response from Uber. So what did DoorDash say? A DoorDash spokeswoman said, and I quote, "Dashers have overwhelmingly told us that they value the flexibility to earn when and how they choose. We're committed to protecting their independence while providing greater security and benefits." Folks, in case you're wondering what is the fundamental difference between an employee and a gig worker, I'll give you a general idea. A gig worker can essentially work when they want, where they want, and how they want. They basically make up their own hours. An employee is required to put in a fixed number of hours for one employer. Gig workers can work with multiple employers. An employee typically works with one or two employers. So these are general differences between employees and gig workers. Now, our viewers and subscribers already know that more and more individuals are doing gig type work. Gig work meaning a temporary gig. Here's a quote from the Reuters article. "Gig workers are independent contractors who perform on-demand services, including as drivers, delivering groceries, or providing childcare, and about 1/3 are more likely to be Black or Latino, according to a research poll from Edison Research." Now, this is really interesting. Marty Walsh wants gig workers to have the same level of protection, and he spoke about the risks that result from not having gig companies pay unemployment insurance for such workers. And this is a scenario that has actually emerged during the pandemic, which is why the federal government had to step up to help gig workers. Here's a direct quote from Marty Walsh. "If the federal government did not cover the gig economy workers, those workers would not only have lost their job, but they wouldn't have had any other unemployment benefits to keep their family moving forward." We've had a lot more difficult situation across the country. So he's right, because the gig workers were not getting state unemployment insurance, and that is how the state unemployment insurance system has been designed. The state unemployment insurance system was designed back in the 1930s when the concept of gig work did not exist, and it has not been overhauled since then. I predict we are going to see an overhaul of the unemployment benefit system, including potentially benefits for gig workers, which is going to put more pressure on companies that employ gig workers. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Let me know if you're a gig worker or an employee. Let me know whether you think that gig workers should get the same benefits as individuals who are employees who receive traditional unemployment insurance. Thank you so much for watching. Please click the like button. Please subscribe. Please enable notifications. I want you to know I work very hard on this channel every single day to bring you the latest news, including scoops like this from the US Labor Secretary. Thank you so much for watching. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Take care. Bye.